The James family came to the orphanage to choose a child. Bullet comments scrolled across the screen. Female lead, go quickly, you've got the script of a heartthrob, a brother who dotes on his sister, a father who spoils his daughter. What's the female lead still hesitating for? I hid inside the cabinet without making a sound, because I knew the barrage comments were right, but I was just a thief who stole her 10 years of luck. The day the true female lead was found would mark the beginning of my nightmare. Suddenly, a boy opened the cabinet, his eyes lighting up. Mom, I found an incredibly handsome hidden variant. Today was the day the James family came to choose a child. The headmistress called all the children out, placing the younger and more attractive ones at the front. Most adoptive parents fear that older children might have their own ideas and be harder to bond with. So some teenagers lowered their heads and stood resignedly at the end of the line. I locked myself in the closet without making a sound. The dean kept calling my name outside, all because I was the child most likely to be chosen by the James family. If a child is chosen by the James family, the orphanage will also receive a substantial investment. The barrage of comments that has always followed me like a shadow starts scrolling again. Go for it, female lead. You've got the script of a crowd favorite. What's the female lead hesitating for? With a brother who dotes on his sister and a father who spoils his daughter. I covered my eyes with my hands. Only when the commotion ended did I lower my hands. The barrage of comments scrolled again. I'm done. My idiocy intolerance is acting up. Instead of living a good life, they insist on staying in this orphanage where they can't even eat their fill. Damn, how did Teresa get recognized so soon? I was still waiting to see the plot where she goes back to recognize her family, drives the female lead to death, and makes her family regret it. Watching the rapidly flashing bullet comments, I froze. How could Teresa appear in the orphanage? Creak, the wooden cabinet door made a sound. The sudden burst of light made it impossible for me to open my eyes. A little boy about my age stood there, his mouth hanging open as if dislocated. The next second, he shouted toward the door, Mom. I found a ridiculously handsome hidden addition. Footsteps sounded outside. You little rascal running around again. How many times have I told you not to judge people just by their looks? The woman who entered froze when she saw me, her eyes widening instantly. Oh my, husband, come quick. There's a ridiculously pretty doll in the house. I'm not saying this to be harsh, but can you two ladies behave more properly when you're outside? The man who had just entered also widened his eyes. As if anticipating his next move, the woman quickly covered his mouth in advance. Suddenly, the barrage of comments before their eyes began to multiply. Why is Teresa's simp here? I remembered this simp ended up being used by Teresa to take the blame for killing the female lead. He spent over a decade in prison and came out to find his family ruined. I glanced at the barrage comments, then at the little boy in front of me, snot bubbling as he handed me a lollipop. Be my little sister, and I'll give you all my lollipops from now on. The couple also looked at me with joyful eyes. Sweetie, come home with uncle. I'll stew you an iron pot goose. The woman smacked the man's head. Get lost, people will think you're kidnapping a child. Then she reached out her hand to me. Come with auntie, won't you? Auntie's stew is better than uncle's. I'll make whatever you want to eat. A wave of inexplicable emotion welled up in my heart as I watched the barrage of comments that kept talking about the plot. I came out of the cabinet and took auntie's hand. Before I turned 18, I always firmly believed that with all those bullet screen comments, I had gotten the script of the group's favorite. She is the chosen one of this world. Though she was adopted, at home, I was the pampered little princess, and at school, I was the envy of everyone. Until the lost daughter of the James family was recognized and brought back on my 18th birthday. From then on, my brother, who had always doted on me, publicly humiliated me at my birthday party. Because of Teresa's words, I was forced to kneel in the heavy rain for a full day and night. Teresa liked my room, my jewelry, and my fiancé, and my parents forced me to give them all to her. They treated me with cold indifference, showering her with all the good things just as they had once done for me. Even though I owed her all these things, I still couldn't believe that the family who had doted on me for 10 years could become so distant overnight. It wasn't until later, from the barrage of comments, that I learned I was actually the thief who had stolen her luck for 10 years. According to the script, I enjoyed a decade of wealth and luxury in her place, only to be humiliated and oppressed after she was found, ultimately leading me to jump to my death in despair. After death, I watched as my family wept in remorse before my grave, finally realizing the truth. Give Teresa 10 million and leave the James family. If being the female lead means I can't control my own life, then I'd rather be an extra. The barrage is filled with insults directed at an 8-year-old girl, been a boy-crazy flirt since childhood, chasing after every cute guy she sees. Wait till she finds out she missed her chance to be a rich heiress, won't know where to hide her tears. I kept my head down, avoiding the barrage of comments, unable to comprehend how people could speak so harshly about a child. I dared not gamble lightly on human nature, yet the three before me radiated an undeniable warmth. I can't help but want to get closer. The little boy in front of me placed a lollipop in my palm, his eyes filled with a kind of innocent foolishness. No wonder I was so easily deceived by Teresa in my past life. Little sister, from now on I'll be your big brother. If anyone bullies you, just tell me, and I'll take you away. I can run really fast. The half-grown kid was being so edgy that it made the two adults burst into laughter. I never knew one could laugh so heartily. I couldn't help but smile until my eyes crinkled. When they brought me before the director, he let out a soft sigh. It's a pity I couldn't make the most of my potential. But they didn't put up much resistance either, quickly completing the formalities before letting them take me away. Yet I never expected to encounter the quarreling Mr. and Mrs. James at the entrance. I should never have let you go in alone. How could you believe whatever nonsense some unwanted stray child spouts? Mrs. James scolded her husband at the doorway, saying they should at least have found someone with decent looks. Looking up, I locked eyes with Mrs. James. A flash of amazement crossed her eyes, but when she noticed Aunt Taylor holding my hand, she angrily punched Mr. James. Teresa also glanced over, her face devoid of any childlike innocence. The barrage of comments erupted once again. It's not too late to go now. Look at Mrs. James all decked out in gold and silver. It's not too late to go now. An orphan from a welfare home with no sense of discernment. Just compare the outfits of the two ladies and you'll see. Can't even grasp this opportunity. Teresa isn't supposed to appear yet according to the script. Hurry up, female lead. Aunt Taylor, that little girl looks so much like her mother. The voice wasn't too loud, but everyone around heard it clearly. It was the first time she heard me speak, and with a sweet, soft voice, she happily kept agreeing. Your daughter has such a keen eye. They call this a mother-daughter resemblance. Sitting in the car and looking back, Teresa was taken away. I owe her nothing in this lifetime. Along the way, Harry kept showcasing his natural humor. One moment he's performing magic tricks for me, the next he's telling me jokes. An orange walked out of the room and turned into juice. Do you know why? Because, halfway through, he laughed so hard he couldn't finish speaking. Everyone in the car was infected by the laughter, except for a few sarcastic comments in the bullet chats. The atmosphere was great, and I didn't feel like an outsider at all. Auntie gave him a flick on the forehead. Don't scare my daughter, you brat. Not everyone is as reckless as you. Then she turned to me. We run a small restaurant at home. Don't mind the simplicity. Auntie will make sure to feed you until you're plump and round. My name is Helen Taylor, and your uncle is David Taylor. He served in the military for 2 years. If anyone bullies you, just tell him. Don't be shy. We're all family now. Auntie chattered on about the family members and the general situation. I listened patiently. Suddenly, Auntie pursed her lips, looking as if she didn't know whether to say something or not. I thought she found me unlikable and wanted to teach me but didn't know how to bring it up. The next second, the aunt took my hand. The director said your name was the one you had when they found you. If you don't want to change it, we won't. I nodded, deeply moved. The aunt's palm was warm and comforting. In my past life, everything was predetermined. I only had to follow through. Now, at last, I have the power to choose. Stepping inside, the house was warm and cozy, tidy and inviting. Auntie took me to see my room, though not large. It was clear at a glance how much care had gone into its arrangement. Rubbing her hands together, Auntie looked at me expectantly. Heidi, do you like it? Your uncle and I put this together just for you. I nodded, my eyes slightly moist. Thank you, Auntie, I really like it. During dinner that evening, Uncle smiled as he placed a chicken leg in my bowl. Sweetheart, look how thin you are, eat more. Harry chimed in beside me. Little sis, go all out. There's more if you want. In no time, my bowl was piled up like a small mountain. Girl, it tastes better when you eat with big bites, Harry said to me while shoveling food into his mouth with big bites. I imitated him and ate with big bites too. It really was delicious. It's really nice here. At this moment, those annoying bullet comments appeared again. This family seems genuine, but I wonder how long they'll last. It won't be long before they start seeing her as a burden. I shoveled food into my mouth while stealing glances at the barrage of comments. Just a bunch of people who can't stand to see others doing well. I'll make them watch how brilliantly I'll live without following the script they've written for me. The first day I arrived at this house, I had a nightmare, dreaming about all the things from my past life. My brother doted on me, buying me a car to make me happy, but it was only because he needed the White family's support to inherit the company. He wanted me to willingly help him please Bob White and pave the way for his future. My parents spoiled me, never letting me do anything, buying me lots of beautiful clothes and expensive skincare products. They turned me into a luxury item waiting to be sold to the highest bidder. After Teresa was found, the marriage contract was returned to her. Because they didn't want to waste all these years of grooming me, they made me become Bob White's hidden canary. If they truly regretted it, it was probably because there was still something they hadn't managed to take from me. I woke up with my forehead covered in a dense layer of sweat. Auntie was gently wiping the tears from the corners of my eyes, her own eyes also reddening. Startled to see me awake, she asked, "Did I wake you up?" I quickly shook my head. "Sweetheart, were you having a nightmare? I heard you talking in your sleep. Whatever happened before is all in the past. Auntie knows you must have suffered a lot, but from now on, let's just be happy, okay? Sleep now. We still need to grow taller. What do you want to eat tomorrow morning?" I sniffled. "Auntie, I want to eat a big meat pie." Auntie tucked me in tighter under the floral patterned quilt. "All right. Sleep tight, dear." She was smiling in her sleep. Auntie took me shopping for clothes. At the mall, we ran into Auntie Lucy from next door. "Oh, so this is the one you adopted from the orphanage. What a pretty little girl." The aunt smiled politely, seemingly unwilling to engage with her too much. "Don't ignore people. This little look is just right for my precious. We could even become closer as family." The barrage of comments popped up again. "See, in a moment, the female lead will be sold off to someone else as a child bride. It would have been better to go to the James family earlier. Now Teresa is bonding with her fiancé. Childhood sweethearts are just too perfect for each other." Aunt Taylor felt my hand suddenly tighten and couldn't hold back her anger any longer, snapping, "Your precious looks like a QR code. Can't even tell what it is without scanning it. You see a girl and immediately think of matchmaking. If there's no mirror at home, at least there's urine, right? Stop embarrassing yourself out here every day." Aunt Lucy's face turned red then pale from Aunt Han's retort. She opened her mouth but couldn't speak for a long time, finally letting out a shrill cry after holding it in. "That's such a nasty thing to say. I was just joking. No need to get so worked up. It's just some wild child from the orphanage you took in, yet you treat her like a treasure." Yeah, my heart skipped a beat. Aunt Taylor shielded me behind her, glaring sharply at Aunt Lucy. "This is our family's precious one. Not like your little prince who still hasn't been weaned at 10 years old and can only babble nonsense." Aunt Taylor's vivid performance made me burst into laughter. Ignoring Aunt Lucy, she breezed right past her. "Come on, sweetheart, let's go buy some clothes," seeing she couldn't gain any advantage. Aunt Lucy huffed and flicked her sleeve angrily. "Fine, you win this round. We'll see about that." Aunt Taylor turned around. "Oh my, I was just joking. Why are you getting so worked up? Carrying bags big and small." Auntie Taylor kept chattering. "When we meet people like this, we can't just hold it in. We have to stand up for ourselves openly. Understand?" I nodded earnestly and firmly. The corners of my mouth curled into a sneer as I watched the barrage of comments before me. Taking advantage of God's perspective to dictate others' lives, I refused to play along with your whims. When it was time for school, I overheard Aunt Taylor on the phone. A few days later, Aunt Taylor slammed the table during dinner. "It's done, Uncle David, Harry," and I froze mid-bite, utterly bewildered. "Mom, you're a grown-up now. Don't be so jumpy." Aunt Taylor turned to me. "Heidi, I pulled some strings to get you into your brother's school. From now on, you'll be with your brother. Study hard and make progress every day." As she spoke, she gave my brother a hearty slap on the back. My brother was happily munching away when the sudden slap nearly made him spit out his food. I'm also very happy. In my past life, Mrs. James said I was different from poor children, that I could learn anything at home and shouldn't interact with anyone. This led to my lack of communication skills. And the only friend who didn't despise me was expelled by the James family. Now other children can go to school, and soon I'll be able to attend school too. "Thank you, Mom," I said very softly, but the dining table suddenly fell silent. My mother looked incredulous, and truth be told, My heart skipped a beat too as I picked at the rice in front of me. For some reason, my eyes grew moist. It should have been a moment worth celebrating. Yet I still felt like crying when I looked up again. My mother's eyes were also glistening. She gazed proudly at my father, as if showing off something truly remarkable. I handed my rice bowl to Dad and said, "Dad, I'd like another half bowl, please." "Hey, hey, hey, okay, okay, okay." Harry laughed beside me. "Doggy still doesn't believe I have a sister. When we get to school, he's gonna be so jealous of me having such an adorable little sister." Then, as if remembering something, he sneakily leaned in and whispered in my ear, "Little sis, don't play with Doggy. He always likes to play with poop bombs." I nodded, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. Once I started school, I pretended to be a student, deliberately controlling my scores in every exam. I originally planned to lay low and just be a regular middle school student, but then I noticed the bullet comments disappearing from my sight, from appearing daily to now barely showing up once a week. So I started paying attention to what they were saying, which was basically about Teresa's life. To avoid being looked down upon in the James family, Teresa used her memories from her past life to build a reputation as a child prodigy. In another year, my brother would have his first encounter with her in high school, so I stopped pretending and told my parents I wanted to skip a grade. "Oh my, that's my daughter for you, full of ambition." My grades have always been above average, even though I knew it might just be a passing whim and I wouldn't succeed. But my parents didn't want to dampen my enthusiasm, so they helped me talk to the principal. When the results came out, the whole family was stunned. I actually passed the exam, and with a perfect score at that. I didn't know what the conditions for skipping a grade were, so to be safe, I didn't deliberately make any mistakes. When my parents got the news, they were so excited they wanted to throw a big banquet, hang banners, and feast on pork. They kissed my cheeks over and over. "Sweetheart, you're amazing." My brother waited beside me with his little face tilted up for a long time, until his neck got tired. Then he half opened his eyes and protested unhappily, "Humph, you're biased." I kissed my brother on the cheek, and his previously pouty little face instantly brightened. "Woohoo, I'm going to show off to Doggy," my mom called after us, both amused and exasperated. "Slow down, you little rascal, don't trip." The last time the bullet comments appeared, one of them said I had to die, thus creating the famous scene where my family would regret it, and my brother is the one who killed me. I couldn't help but find it amusing. Didn't the script update notify them? "Little sis, do you want some spicy strips?" Panting, I waved my hand and politely declined. After the barrage comments disappeared, I finally felt the reality of my new life. But not long after, Teresa appeared, and the barrage comments immediately returned before my eyes. During the afternoon basketball game, Harry accidentally hit Teresa on the head and fell in love with her at first sight. The female lead must be green with envy seeing how well Teresa is doing now. Since I already know what happens next, I must change it. Though I don't know how much effort she put into coming to school, I must prevent them from meeting. I tried to stop my brother from going to the afternoon basketball game, but for the first time, he became serious. I knew he meant it. Once he sets his mind on something, not even 10 oxen could pull him back. That was also the reason he had always helped Teresa in his previous life. If this approach doesn't work, then I'll try another direction. After inquiring about Teresa's afternoon schedule, I felt relieved. My brother's basketball game in the afternoon clashed with her piano training class. Mrs. James's training program requires students to earn enough money to make up for any missed sessions themselves. If it's just a part-time job, I probably wouldn't earn enough in a lifetime. To avoid any surprises, I scanned the crowd for Teresa's presence. Not seeing her made me feel slightly relieved. Just as I was greeting my brother at the start of the event, Teresa showed up, not sitting properly in the stands. She insisted on standing at the entrance of the court with a loudspeaker, shouting, "Go Harry," because the moment she shouted, my brother fumbled and missed the shot, and the opposing player's rebound hit Teresa right on the forehead. By the time I made my way through the crowd, all the players were rushing toward the entrance. The match was cancelled because someone got hurt. I looked at my brother. "You're not thinking about Teresa, are you?" "Who's Teresa?" "No one can change my mind." I was completely confused. "Bro, you're not actually falling for this woman, are you?" My brother looked at me with teary eyes. "Little sis, it's all because of that woman today, with so much space. She had to stand right in the doorway. You like listening to music, right? I was going to win that speaker for you, but now it's all ruined." Hearing the explanation, I burst into laughter through my tears. So all that sadness was for me, bro? How did you know our parents bought a skateboard and got a free mini speaker with it? Speaker, no, I mean, skateboard. I nodded with a smile. As soon as school was over, my brother couldn't wait to drag me home. The moment we stepped in, he spotted the cool skateboard on the floor and insisted on going out for a ride. A bullet comment popped up. Hurry up, Teresa is waiting outside. I nearly choked on my water. Bro, we're eating, let's play tomorrow. Although my brother really wanted to play, he restrained himself and went back to his room to message Doggy and brag about it. Lying in bed at night, I couldn't stop laughing at the barrage of comments before my eyes. This Teresa is so weird. Instead of staying in the infirmary after getting hurt, she insisted on freezing outside the female lead's house all night. That's hilarious. Bird poop landed on her head. The next day, feeling uneasy, I went out first to check. I was afraid she might faint at my doorstep. And if my brother kindly took her to the hospital, the story would unfold from there, as it turned out. All my worries were unnecessary. Teresa did faint, but she was picked up by the James family's car early in the morning. Why do I feel like the female lead's character setting is off? I think so too. Could she have been reborn like Teresa? The comments hit the nail on the head. Annoyed, I threw my backpack at my brother. Hurry up, we're going to be late. My brother looked utterly confused and muttered quietly behind me. Wasn't it you who wouldn't let me leave? In high school afterward. I never saw Teresa again, because my brother didn't do well in academic subjects. He took the athletic scholarship route. He barely made it into the same university as me. My parents joyfully held a college celebration banquet, inviting all the neighbors, even Aunt Wang, whom I had argued with as a child. I looked around and asked my brother, "Where's Doggy? Isn't he coming on such a big day?" My brother's happy face immediately fell. Don't mention it. He was recognized by some white family in J City and taken back. The first thing he did after striking it rich was forget his roots. He won't even answer our calls now. The white family, a wave of dread washed over me. Was it the white family I was thinking of? My brain rapidly recalled the day I first met Bob White in my previous life. Oh no, it's the day after tomorrow. I wondered how a perfectly good little boy could be named Doggy, as long as I avoid contact and keep my distance from now on. I probably won't meet that same fate. Just as I was thinking, a group of people stormed in aggressively. Where is my daughter? My mother stepped forward to ask, but unexpectedly, that woman pushed her aside. Heidi is my daughter, I'm her birth mother, come out right now. My brother shielded me. For 18 years, I had also fantasized about the scenario of being found by my biological parents. Perhaps they would hold my hands and chat warmly, or at the very least, give me a dignified choice. But these people barged in as if they wanted to ruin me. I stood still, unmoving, and when they saw me, they ran toward me. Child, I'm your birth mother. Then she pulled out a little boy and said, look, this is your brother, you must compensate him. You inherited all the good looks and intelligence, leaving him unable to even get into high school. Tears streamed down like a breached river, her voice trembling, impossible, as if anticipating my disbelief. She produced a DNA test report from who knows where. You're in college now. Perfect timing to guide your little brother. Come, let's go home with mom. She reached out to grab me, but my brother pushed her away. Don't you dare touch my sister with those filthy hands. Little brother, this, little brother, that. What era are you living in with that son preference nonsense? Seeing this situation, my mom also asked the neighbors to leave first. However, before leaving, Aunt Wang couldn't resist a few more sarcastic remarks. Raised someone else's child for 10 years, finally got her grown up, and now the biological parents show up. Should have just made her my child bride from the start. Watching my mom unable to utter a single word in rebuttal, I wished desperately that I were an orphan with no parents at all. After everyone had left, my mom spoke directly to those people. I respect my daughter's decision, if she wants to return to her biological parents. I have no objections, but if she chooses to stay, I ask that you never come back again from this day forward. Many eyes were on me, watching my mother's confident demeanor. How could I bear to disappoint her? Standing behind my mother, seeing that I had made my choice, they still wouldn't let it go. Watching as the other party began to push and shove my mother, my dad grabbed a chair and threw it. You damn well haven't raised this girl for a single day. When I first saw her, her little face was barely the size of 2 fingers. Who knows how much she suffered in that hellhole of an orphanage. And now, after all these years, the first time you meet her is for the sake of your son. Are you even fit to be called parents? As he spoke, my dad choked up with tears. If you want to take her away today, you'll have to step over my dead body. Otherwise, take this 100,000 and leave. From today onward, she's our child. My brother wiped my tears as I said. No matter how pretty a child that young is, how noticeable could she really be? The neighbors who had started to leave came back. I've watched this child grow up. Don't you dare lay a finger on her. Get the hell out of here. Even Aunt Lucy picked up a broom. I've had my eye on this girl since she was little. If you think you can take her from me, try facing my family's dog-beating stick technique first. So this was the last shred of hope I had been holding on to, summoning my courage. I spoke my first words to them. You don't deserve to be called my parents. I only have a brother, no younger brother, and my name isn't Heidi. Seeing they were outmatched, they took the 100,000 from the table and left. My parents thanked the neighbors and specially handed a bag of candy to Aunt Lucy. This is for your eldest prince. Aunt Lucy snorted. I don't want it. From now on, have her tutor my precious instead. I agreed with a smile. But my mom wasn't happy and stuffed the candy into Aunt Lucy's arms. No way, you just want my daughter to bond with your son. I won't allow it. Aunt Lucy stormed off in a huff. In the direction she left, I saw Teresa's figure. It was indeed her doing. Our family isn't particularly well off. The 100,000 yuan was my parents' retirement savings. My parents even comforted me. It's not much. Money can be earned again, but we only have one daughter. She's priceless, no matter how you look at it. We came out ahead. To prevent that family from causing trouble again, my parents quickly registered my household registration. I've changed my new name to Sunny Taylor. Every day from now on will be like a sunrise. From the barrage comments. I learned that Teresa has met with Bob White. On the very first day, Bob White told the James family she was ugly and wanted to call off the engagement. The White family dotes on their youngest son who was just found. Whatever he says goes. I asked my brother if he knew who Teresa was, and he said of course he did. My alarm bells went off. Every time I go out skateboarding, she bumps into me. She's dropped her ID in front of me 108 times, and always spills food all over me. How can someone be so clumsy? You're the smart one, little sis. Flattered by his praise, I turned around and ran into Doggy. You little brat, forget where you came from now that you've got money. My brother punched him in the chest. No wonder I didn't recognize him. Clothes make the man, and a saddle makes the horse, dressed in designer brands. He looked like a completely different person. Bob White scratched his head awkwardly and said with a smile, how could I forget my roots? I just had a pile of things to deal with back home, so I came over as soon as I had time. I studied him carefully and noticed that despite wearing designer clothes, his demeanor still carried the same honest simplicity from childhood. I chuckled and teased, Doggy bro. Oh no. I should call you Bob White now. Life's treating you well, huh? You've become so handsome. Jokes aside, we still need to be wary of what schemes Teresa might be cooking up, but I'm not afraid of her. Now that I have the support of family and friends, I'm confident I can handle anything. After the college celebration banquet, we made a promise with Bob White to keep in touch regularly. On the weekend, just as my family's small restaurant opened, a row of black luxury cars parked at the entrance. Teresa walked in arm with Mrs. James, followed by her gloomy-looking brother from the James family. Teresa pointed at me, sobbing, it's her, she bullied me at the orphanage. I couldn't help but find it amusing. Really, anything could be pinned on me. She pulled out her phone, and I thought it was some kind of evidence, but instead she opened a post. In the post, Teresa had anonymously shared several yellowed photos. In them, her frail figure was huddled in a corner, while a blurry figure in the distance did bear a resemblance to me. The caption read, the childhood trauma of being bullied still haunts me to this day. I can't even sleep with the lights off, and now the perpetrator is basking in the glory of being a model student and receiving scholarships. My mom shielded me behind her. Sweetheart, we stand tall with a clear conscience. If you want to spread rumors, at least bring some proof. The barrage comments popped up again. So the female lead was already bullying others as a child, and her mother just protects her own. Who's going to make up for the pain Teresa suffered? Recently, one thing after another has been happening in my family. Upon hearing this, the neighbors immediately came to back us up. Seeing the crowd growing too large, they left after throwing out a few harsh words. Later, when they came knocking again, they brought a large group of reporters with them. They thought I couldn't produce any evidence. but my brother helped me obtain the surveillance footage from the orphan that year. In the footage, Teresa soaked my blanket with ice water, and my tiny figure curled up in the closet to sleep for the night. Public opinion immediately reversed. We reported it to the police, but unfortunately, they were bailed out with money not long after. After entering university, I joined the professor's lab, and the daily busyness temporarily made me forget Teresa's existence. However, the peaceful life didn't last long. One day, I received an anonymous letter. It read, "Sonny Taylor, do you think you can change everything? You're so naive. Why do they all revolve around you? Just you wait." As I looked at the letter, I felt a wave of nervousness. This letter must have been Teresa's doing. From then on, I became even more cautious, stayed vigilant of the surroundings to prevent Teresa's scheme from succeeding. For a long time, she didn't cause any trouble, so I told my brother about it. He nervously told me not to go to school and stay at home. I refused. I wanted to figure out what she was really up to. I'm afraid that if I stay at home, she might target my family. But Teresa seemed to have become even more cunning, her schemes repeatedly catching us off guard. I was conducting an experiment when a girl behind me deliberately mixed up the reagents. An explosion occurred in the lab. I was thrown to the ground by the blast wave. Fortunately, I only suffered burns on my arm, but I still felt a lingering fear. If the White family hadn't funded the construction of the lab building and provided protective suits for the researchers, I might have really met my end here. From the surveillance footage, we saw that Teresa was the one behind it. She disguised herself as a student and sneaked into the lab, causing an explosion with some reagent formula she had seen from who knows where. She never intended to walk away unscathed from the very beginning. Later I found out, she was kicked out of the James family for having no more use. But the money they gave her was enough to last a lifetime. I clearly don't owe him anything in this lifetime, so why must he keep making things difficult for me? It wasn't until I saw her that I knew. The moment she saw me, her previously calm expression began to crack. "You still dare to come here? If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have ended up like this." I frowned and retorted, "So you think it's because of me that you ended up like this? I neither disrupted your life nor framed or threatened you. Where did you even get that idea?" She suddenly burst into tears, crying as if tears cost nothing. "I thought if I came home early, they wouldn't have time to arrange a backup plan for you like they did in my past life. The moment I saw you this time, I knew you'd also been reborn. We were supposed to be parallel lines that never intersect. Yet my mother regrets every day why she didn't adopt you instead, but I'm her biological daughter." Later, even the people who had always stood by my side in my previous life began to turn to you. I had nothing left. "Why are you so lucky? Why?" She screamed her heart out, leaving me speechless. So being sold off as someone else's caged bird was her backup plan, and she blames others for not liking her while scheming to harm people every day. No matter what you say, this kind of person would never admit their own faults. My parents refused to settle, as it was a matter of life and death after all. After this incident, Teresa received the punishment she deserved. She was taken away by the police, and later I heard she committed suicide in prison. Before her death, she kept murmuring, "One more chance, just one more chance. I would never place my hopes in family or love again." Hearing this, I couldn't help but laugh. There are no second chances in life. If you didn't seize the opportunity, that's on you. Don't blame others. Our lives have finally returned to peace. Bob White brought down the James family and confessed his feelings to me, but I refused. Since the James family's bankruptcy was only a matter of time, he gave it a push, hoping to move me and make me marry him. To me, this is emotional blackmail. My mother said, "A woman's worth is not defined by marriage. There's still a long road ahead. And if you truly meet the right person in the future, there will be plenty of time to be together." From then on, I cherished my family and friends around me even more. I knew that only they were my strongest support. I also realized that as long as we stand united, there is no difficulty we cannot overcome. The barrage comments have completely disappeared from my life. In the days to come, I am simply Sonny Taylor, neither a James nor a Duncan. After hearing the first story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. Mom committed suicide by jumping off a building due to severe depression. My dad was completely broken by her. I became his only child for the rest of his life. On the day Mom died, Dad couldn't wait to bring his white moonlight and her daughter into our home. My father sneered and told me that my mother was using death as a means to take revenge on him. wanting him to live in guilt for the rest of his life. The man's eyes were bloodshot, his heart writhing in pain, yet he didn't understand what the pain was for. He wouldn't let her have her way. At 15, it took me 7 years to settle accounts with the Green family, becoming the final MVP victor in the reckoning. Dad hates me. After Mom died, Dad hates me even more. Mom and Dad were childhood sweethearts, innocent playmates from a young age. The two grew up in the same compound, going to and from school together, with Dad always riding his bicycle to take Mom to school. Everyone thought they would end up together, but childhood sweethearts are no match for fate's sudden intervention. In their first year of high school, Aunt Linda transferred to their school. She was beautiful, and Dad ended up with her instead. After graduating from college, my father's family went bankrupt. For the sake of family interests, he married my mother. A year later, I was born. Linda was different from my mother's beauty. My mother was as tough as an ox, capable of knocking out 3 men with a single punch. Aunt Linda's eyes held an irresistible stubbornness. Her slender figure and delicate demeanor made men feel an overwhelming urge to protect her. Unlike Mom, who was carefree and straightforward, with short hair that made her look like a little firecracker, always mixing it up with the boys at school. Her neat, short haircut was incredibly handsome, radiating sunshine and vitality, more dashing than any man. But my mother is dead, severely depressed. She jumped off a building and took her own life. Mother died right in front of me, splattering me with her blood. For as long as I can remember, Mother always had long, jet black hair, gorgeous and captivating. She was nothing like that tomboy locked in the closet. When I was little, I always heard Mom and Dad arguing, with Dad calling Mom a copycat. He said Mom was copying Linda. Who is Linda? I saw it today, when Father George returned. He spotted me sitting dazedly in the stairwell at first glance and waved at me with a smile. Sophia, this is your Aunt Linda and her daughter. They'll be living with us from now on. I sat blankly in the hallway, staring at the smile on Dad's face, confused, dazed, bewildered. He seemed to smile at me for the first time. Dad doesn't like me, I know. He has never smiled at me. The nanny said that from the day I was born until now. My father has never held me, but he smiled at me today. I tried to force a smile, but my stiff face couldn't manage any expression. My mom is dead. I couldn't bring myself to laugh. So this is Linda, not as pretty as my mom. George looked at me with smiling eyes and spoke to me with rare gentleness. Your sister has a heart condition. Take good care of her. The man stood before her in a well-tailored suit, his tall frame almost enveloping her in shadow, a faint smile playing at the corners of his lips. The way Dad looked at that Aunt Linda was so tender it seemed like his gaze could melt into water. Dad had never looked at Mom like this before. Suddenly, I felt a deep sadness and sorrow for Mom. Aunt Linda had well-maintained skin, with a cool elegance in the corners of her eyes and brows, like an alpine snow lotus. Her white dress accentuated her fresh and ethereal beauty, making her appear like a fairy. Sarah hid behind her, glaring at me with a look full of hostility, as if I were the bad kid who stole her father away. Seeing me still sitting silently in the hallway, George's expression darkened with indifference. Can't even say hello. How on earth did your mother raise you? Who are you showing that dead face to all day? I don't have a dead face. Mom says I'm just a little different from other kids. I'm just sick. But Dad never cared. My face showed neither sorrow nor joy. Those indifferent eyes fixed on him as I spoke hoarsely. I don't have a mother anymore. Sophia, how dare you curse your mother like that? My eyes locked onto him, and suddenly I laughed, a laugh tinged with irony. It's not worth it for Mom, for a man like this. Seeing me laugh like that, George's face flushed with anger. He walked over and said coldly, if you keep being this rude, I'll send you back to your grandmother's. This implied that he wanted to send Sophia to the countryside. After the Green family went bankrupt, Dad married Mom, and soon the Franklin and Green families merged. The company is now entirely under Dad's control. Grandpa and Grandma were ousted from the board and banished to the countryside by Dad. Mom says Dad resents her for forcing him to marry her back then, preventing him from being with his white moonlight, unattainable love. He also harbors resentment toward Grandpa and Grandma for aiding and abetting Mom. Mom said she gave Dad a chance back then, to marry her and save the Green Group. If he refused, she would give Dad $1 million as living expenses. The Green Group went bankrupt, suffering massive losses. No one in J City lent them a helping hand. Debt collectors were everywhere. Mom never makes a losing deal, so she gave Dad a choice. Mom liked Dad, traded for benefits, fought for her own happiness. She has no regrets. It's not like she didn't offer him the choice, as childhood friends. George wouldn't marry Mom, nor would he let Dad starve to death. But that was the extent of it. It was George himself who chose family interests. In the end, love was defeated by reality. George's eyes were bloodshot, his breathing heavy as he snarled at me viciously. "You're such an ungrateful wretch," he sneered coldly. "Your mother giving birth to you was her punishment. Judy, this mother, has no idea what she's teaching all day. Sophia is no match for Linda's daughter from start to finish, rude, vulgar, and emotionally cold." Seeing the man's anger, Linda's eyes gleamed with a hint of triumph and mockery. So what if Judy forced George to marry her? A man's heart will always long for her. Linda stepped closer with an understanding smile, approaching George and saying, "Children usually don't say things like that." She pursed her lips and smiled. "Perhaps it's the adults using her as a means to vie for favor." Hearing this, the man's dislike for Judy intensified, and he stormed over angrily to teach her a lesson. As George approached, he finally saw Sophia's entire figure and the large bloodstain on her white dress. George froze for a moment, his face showing signs of panic. "What happened to you?" For some reason, his heart had been pounding incessantly since he returned home. A sense of foreboding spread through his chest. Sarah approached and exclaimed loudly, "Oh my God, Sophia, why did you do this to yourself?" With reddened eyes, she looked at Sophia and asked, "Do you not welcome me? Is that why you did this?" Linda was also stunned, frowning in disgust. "Judy knows you're divorcing her, so you're really going all out. Huh, not likable herself. And now she's sending her daughter to do the dirty work." Sarah gave Sophia a disgusted look. "Mom, this looks just like my painting pigment, so fake." George, who had initially looked somewhat concerned, turned to Sophia upon hearing this, his eyes now filled with irritation. After divorcing Judy, Sophia had originally stayed with him. The bloodline of the Green family must never be allowed to fall into the hands of outsiders. Who would have thought that Sophia, in her attempt to keep him, would team up with her mother to stage this act? Is this meant to make him feel guilty? He refuses to give that woman the satisfaction. "Where did you get all that paint?" His gaze flickered vaguely toward the upstairs, his voice scolding Sophia angrily. Sophia's eyelashes trembled slightly as the image of her mother jumping to her death right before her eyes flashed through her mind. Slowly, I raised my hand and held it out to my father, my voice detached. "It's Mom's blood." Standing before him, I tilted my head and asked in confusion, "Can't you smell it?" The air was thick with the metallic scent of blood. Thick and suffocating, I felt nauseous. Seeing my father like this with that woman who had so brazenly entered our home made me even sicker. Linda walked over with her daughter, giving me a once-over with a look of disgust flashing in her eyes, her face pale with worry. She looked at Dad, her eyes gradually reddening. "Does Judy not welcome us?" So she deliberately set this up. With a stubborn gaze at Dad, Linda swayed unsteadily, her voice choked with tears. "Maybe Sarah and I should just leave." George had initially been somewhat skeptical, but now he was even more convinced that the woman had orchestrated this whole scene just to keep him from leaving. After all, Judy was someone who clung to life and feared death, and she was even more afraid of pain. He knew that utterly malicious woman all too well. She would absolutely never do something like commit suicide. "Don't you dare leave. This family isn't theirs to rule. Not her or her daughter." Hearing this, George flew into a rage. He slapped me across the face and sneered, "Why are you as shameless as your mother? Instead of learning good things, you pick up these low-class tricks. Go tell your mom to get the hell down here. Come down and apologize to Linda right now." I raised my hand to cover the cheek that had been slapped, a trickle of blood seeping from the corner of my lips. I lifted my icy eyes, staring fixedly at the people before me as if looking at corpses. "She's dead. Are you deaf?" George looked at Sophia's eyes, so similar to Judy's, and for some reason, his heart suddenly trembled. Sophia was too much like that vicious woman, Judy. That woman had stared at him with the same eyes when she hated him. George's face grew even more furious upon hearing Sophia's words. However, before he could speak, the butler hurried in, holding an urn. "Sir, what should we do with the mistress's ashes?" Hearing this, George's pupils dilated, and his breath froze. He exuded a chilling aura and angrily said, "Butler, how could even you join in mocking me?" The butler was slightly stunned. He glanced at Sophia, then looked at George's expression and sighed. "Sir, the mistress has jumped to her death. Please accept my condolences. The mistress committed suicide by jumping off the building. It was handled by the old madam. The old lady didn't even allow the young miss to follow, ordering the villa's bodyguards to watch over her while having the mistress's body cremated as quickly as possible. He was the villa's old butler. He witnessed how the master and mistress went from being a sweet couple at first to quarreling incessantly as if they were enemies. Back when they had just gotten married, the gentleman and his wife were once deeply in love. The young miss was conceived that very year, yet no one knows when. Everything changed. The husband started staying out all night. The wife was left alone in an empty room night after night. In the end, the two became locked in fierce verbal battles, exchanging sharp words. When I saw the urn in the butler's hands, a layer of hatred clouded my eyes. That was her mother, now just a tiny presence in an urn. George clearly didn't believe these words. Furious, he ran upstairs to find Judy. Can you give my mother back to me? I walked up to the butler, opened my hands, my eyes empty and lifeless. An inexplicable sorrow welling up from deep within. This blood-sucking Green family, every single one of them is responsible for her mother's death. The butler looked at Sophia, covered in blood and pale as a sheet, his heart aching with pity. Miss, you should leave this place far behind. If she stayed, she would also face the master's wrath. The old madam dislikes the young miss, and the master doesn't care for her either. Sophia took the urn, nodded, her voice hoarse. Thank you, uncle. The car is ready outside. Please hurry, the butler urged. Before long, Mrs. Green had arrived, followed by several bodyguards. The look she gave Sophia was enough to devour her. You cheap thing, get out of here now. Mrs. Green's face was dark and terrifying as she glared at Sophia. Butler, throw her out. She hated everyone in the Green family, especially Sophia's grandmother. When her husband was alive, his heart was always with Sophia's grandmother, his unattainable white moonlight. Upon learning that Judy was that woman's daughter, she was consumed with rage, wishing she could devour Judy alive. That woman seduced her husband, and now her daughter is trying to get involved with her son. After all these years, Mrs. Green finally had her moment of triumph. She sneered at Sophia. Sophia, take your dead mother and get the hell out of here. Just like your grandmother, go back to the countryside. Even though Sophia was her own granddaughter, the mere thought that this girl carried the blood of the woman she despised most made it impossible for her to ever see Sophia as her granddaughter again. What's more, if the Green family hadn't gone bankrupt back then, she would never have agreed to let Judy in, even if it meant death. Old Mrs. Green had intended to fulfill her son's wishes, but now Judy is dead. Now that Linda is back, she can give them another grandson. Their family no longer has to swallow their pride. Sophia was driven out of the Green family and sent to the countryside, forced to live with her impoverished grandparents. By the time George came downstairs, Sophia was already gone from the hall. The moment he saw his mother, his eyes filled with confusion and helplessness, and finally welled up with tears. How could that woman die? He never thought of wanting her dead. On the living room sofa, old Mrs. Green and Linda sat together, as close as mother and daughter. Sarah sweetly began calling her grandma, Grandma this and Grandma that. Mrs. Green was so overjoyed that she couldn't stop smiling. She immediately took off the bracelet she had been reluctant to give to Sophia and handed it to Sarah. She treated her as if she were her own granddaughter, now that she's dead. There's nothing standing between you and my son. With a smile on her face, Mrs. Green held Linda's hand and patted it, saying, you two should get married soon and try to give me a chubby grandson this year. Sarah grinned mischievously. Mom, I want a little brother too. The remark made Linda blush, casting a shy glance at George. It also sent Grandma Green into fits of laughter. My granddaughter's words are prophetic. I might just get to hold a grandson soon. The living room was filled with joy and happiness, showing no trace of the gloom that typically follows a death. George's body was tense, his throat felt as if something was stuck in it, and his blood seemed to flow backward. It made him inexplicably uncomfortable. Judy was really dead. She actually died just like that. She used death to take revenge on him, wanting him to live in guilt for the rest of his life. The man's eyes were bloodshot, his heart spasming in pain. Yet he didn't know what he was hurting over. He wouldn't let her have her way. The countryside. Sophia was driven back to the countryside, holding the urn. The elderly couple, upon seeing their daughter's urn, were overwhelmed with grief and wanted to confront the Green family for justice. In the end, Sophia stopped them. The Green family is now a far cry from what it used to be. Even the grandparents can't get into the villa. let alone see George. It's also highly likely that they would be harshly humiliated by Mrs. Green and George. Grandma fainted from crying when she saw the urn, and after settling her down, Grandpa silently wiped away his tears while sitting in a chair. We tried to persuade her not to marry George. That man clearly didn't love her. If I had been tougher, less soft-hearted, your mother wouldn't have ended up like this. I sat on the chair, my eyes also reddening. Grandpa, it's not your fault. Bob Franklin is now old. Having been schemed against by his son-in-law and kicked out of the company, returning to the countryside, he couldn't help. Sophia, the old man, with reddened eyes and a pained heart, gently touched his granddaughter's head. He had learned from others that heartless George had already brought home the mistress he kept outside and her daughter to the Green family. His granddaughter had also been abandoned by the Green family. Bob Franklin's hands trembled as he said, "My dear Sophia, what will become of you now?" I tightly pressed my lips together, reaching out to hold Grandpa's hand. "Grandpa, do you trust me?" Her eyes shone brightly as Bob Franklin nodded. "Night." Sophia curled up in the corner of the room, clutching the urn, listening to the patter of rain against the iron gate outside the window, and began to miss her mother. Grandma and Grandpa are doing well, but she had to return to the Green family. She texted George, "Dad, can you come pick me up? I want to go back to school." The phone screen flickered in the darkness, the last unread message frozen at 4 p.m. "Sophia, stay put in the countryside. I'm going to marry your Aunt Linda. Don't bother me unless it's important. Someone will come to pick you up in a couple of days." After all, she was his own flesh and blood, and George couldn't bring himself to be as heartless as old Mrs. Green. Moreover, she had just lost her mother. At this point, Sophia was only 15 years old. After the wedding, the people George had arranged came to take Sophia back. The day George got married was also the day my mother was buried. I raised my hand to look at the sun in the sky, its blinding light making it impossible for her to open her eyes. Old Mrs. Green daydreamed about having a grandson, one she would never hold in her lifetime. George couldn't father one anymore. That poor woman, in the end, was also making plans for her own child. The Green family, now and forever, will only have my bloodline as its sole heir. I bid farewell to my grandparents and stepped into the car in my little leather shoes. Upon returning to the Green residence, Linda was already seated in the position belonging to Mrs. Gu. Seeing her return, she greeted with a loving smile. "Sophia is back. Don't blame your dad for picking you up only now. We just got married, and he's been very busy these past few days," she said awkwardly. "Besides, your grandmother, Mrs. Green, had never liked her, and she'd always known it. This woman just had to remind her again." With a well-behaved smile on my face, I called out, "Aunt Lynn." The smile on Linda's face froze for a moment. She glanced at Sophia in confusion but saw no trace of hatred in her eyes. She had large eyes, fair skin, and a clear gaze, appearing obedient and easy to handle. Nor was there a hint of sadness. When Sarah saw me, she snorted disdainfully, her nostrils flaring. With unmistakable dislike in her eyes, George's gaze lingered on her face for a second before shifting away. "Now that you're back, get along well with your sister and Aunt Linda," I obediently responded, leaving no room for fault. "Okay," George said indifferently, "come and eat." Linda played the role of a doting mother to perfection, serving Sophia food while feigning concern. "Sorry we couldn't have you at the wedding." My expression remained indifferent. "It's fine. I was busy burying my mother that day. The day you got married was also the day we held my mother's funeral." The air instantly froze at these words. I looked at the people at the table with amusement. "Why aren't you eating anymore?" George's chest heaved. "Sophia, are you deliberately trying to upset me?" I tilted my head to look at him. "I'm just telling the truth." I tilted my head and looked at him with feigned innocence. "Daddy, have you seen how Mom looked when she died? She was covered in blood, jumped from upstairs, not yet completely dead, her eyes wide open, dying with a grievance, a meal that ended in discord." I looked at the food in my bowl, untouched, and eventually poured it into the trash. Returning to my room, I found all my belongings and clothes gone, replaced by many of Sarah's things. Sarah pushed the door open triumphantly, her face beaming with a smile. "Did you come to my room to steal my things?" "This room, Dad promised it to me. This room was personally arranged for me by my mom. She loved me very much, so every corner of it carries traces of her." I stared at the necklace around her neck and said coldly, "Take it off. That necklace was bought for me by my mom on her birthday, and now, it's hanging around Sarah's neck." Sarah looked down at me with a disdainful glance. Your mom used Dad Green's money. Why should it be given to you? With a provocative smile, she yanked off the necklace and threw it on the ground, stepping on it with her foot. I'd rather destroy it than give it to you. Sophia's pupils contracted, her eyes turning crimson as rage surged within her. I walked over, raised my hand, and slapped her, then grabbed her hair and slammed her head hard against the wall. A large amount of blood splattered as Sarah's forehead split open, filling the air with a thick, metallic scent of blood. Sarah's agonized wails echoed through the villa, her desperate cries for help piercing the air. Linda rushed up immediately, but upon witnessing the bloody scene, she let out a terrified scream. By the time George caught up, Sarah was already beaten half to death by me, her head covered in blood. The man walked over, without saying a word, pulled me away, and kicked me hard, sending me flying. My body slammed violently against the wall. Sophia, are you out of your mind? My eyes were bloodshot, filled with intense hatred. I should have gone mad long ago. I always thought I was emotionally detached, that I wouldn't feel pain. Mother is free now. She should be happy. At this moment, I realized, I began to learn hatred. No matter how strong a girl is, she is no match for a grown man. Clutching my stomach, I looked up again. The hatred in my eyes faded, replaced by welling tears. My eyes turned red, and my voice trembled with a sob. Dad. She broke the birthday gift Mom gave me. My voice trembled slightly. That was the only gift she left me when she died. My cheeks showed fragile sorrow as I cried until my voice grew hoarse. This room was arranged for me by Mom when I was born, and you gave it to Sarah. George's initial fury softened slightly when faced with a face so resembling Judy's. Unable to meet her gaze directly, Linda hugged Sarah and wept, looking up at George. Look what she did to Cheryl. I looked up, a murderous glint flashing in my eyes. If she dares to barge into my room and take my mother's things again, I'll kill her. Sophia, George roared, apologize to your sister. I stood up and picked up the necklace Sarah had trampled on, my eyelids drooping slightly. Sorry, I almost didn't beat you to death. Those words earned Sophia a slap from George, a blow so hard it left her ears ringing and her vision swimming. I turned around and looked at George in disbelief. He hated her. But after all, she was his own daughter, and he had never laid a hand on her. After hitting her, George realized his hands were trembling. He regretted it, trying to suppress his shaking hands and wanting to vent his anger. He saw Sophia spit out a mouthful of blood and collapse straight to the ground. It felt like Judy's death came rushing back. This was her only daughter, yet he had nearly beaten her half to death. That kick was uncontrolled in its force. Rage had taken over, making him forget Sophia was still an underage girl. One kick nearly killed her. At that moment, an endless surge of panic overwhelmed him, his voice trembling as he ran over in a frantic, desperate rush. Sophia is as stubborn as a mule, her temper just like her mother's. George picked out a new room for Sarah. Sarah moved out of the room and didn't dare to stay any longer, because when Sophia goes crazy, no one can withstand it. When I woke up, only the butler was by the hospital bed. Seeing me awake, the butler quickly poured me a glass of water and sighed. Miss, why must you argue with her? I took a sip of water and smiled without speaking, but the smile sent a sharp pain through my entire body. If you don't fight for something, others will only think you're weak and take advantage of you even more. However, Sophia also beat Sarah half to death. Next time, she probably won't dare to provoke her again. George didn't come to the ward until Sophia had fallen asleep. He looked at the tender little face on the hospital bed, trembling as he reached out to touch it, only to curl his fingers back at the last moment. Back when she was little, he had genuinely cared for her too. The doctor said Sophia had internal bleeding from being kicked in the abdomen, with damaged organs. She never made a sound. If she hadn't collapsed and been rushed to the hospital, even surgery might not have saved her if they'd arrived any later. This is his biological daughter. Judy is dead. Her daughter was almost beaten to death by him too. George should hate that woman, wishing she would drop dead immediately. He even began to feel disgust toward the daughter she had born for him. But now Judy was dead, and he hadn't even seen her one last time. George sat for a while, then hunched his back and left. Sophia stayed in the hospital for a long time. When she was discharged, George came to pick her up. Neither the father nor the daughter spoke a word. The driver opened the car door, and Sophia pretended to sleep as soon as she got in. The car finally stopped at the restaurant where Judy used to bring her often. George ordered many of her favorite dishes. As Sophia ate, Large teardrops began to fall uncontrollably. She stuffed food into her mouth while tears streamed down her face. Her porcelain-like, delicate features now bore traces of fragility, confusion, and helplessness as she wept silently. George watched the scene before him in silence, his heart aching intensely. But he couldn't bring himself to say the words, "I'm sorry, I've had the housekeeper tidy up your room, restoring it to how it was before." I cried so hard I nearly choked, struggling to catch my breath, while the man's guilt grew heavier in his heart. After all, he's just a poor child who just lost his mother. After the meal, the two of them took a car back to the Green residence. Sarah reacted to seeing me like a mouse spotting a cat, and I went upstairs with reddened eyes. The moment the door closed, all traces of sorrow vanished from my face. I cried. I was just pretending. Sarah and I were the same age, so naturally we attended the same school. However, I was in class 1. While Sarah was in class 3, at school, we had no interaction. Whenever Sarah saw me, it was as if she had encountered a demon. She would avoid me from afar. She knew what was good for her, because when I lose my temper, I'd expose her homewrecker mother and beat her to death. For the past 2 years, I've been pretending to be obedient and well-behaved, getting George to hire renowned tutors for me. Linda didn't want her daughter to fall behind me either, so she also hired top tutors for Sarah. But a fool is a fool, no matter how brilliant the teacher is. It's useless. When the college entrance exam results came out, I effortlessly got into Tsinghua and Peking University. That was the first time George gave me a genuinely sincere smile. Mrs. Green even gave me a rare compliment. George and Linda have been married for 3 years without having any children. Mrs. Green made her take countless medicines and undergo numerous IVF treatments, but she still couldn't conceive. Every time Linda had to endure injections, drink bitter traditional Chinese medicine, and show expressions of pain, I always take wicked pleasure in it like a little fox. This is just the beginning. There will be worse times for you. I pushed open George's study door and said with a sweet smile, "Dad, I want to intern at your company during the summer break. 3 years is enough time to change a person and to wear away many things." Like the love George once boasted about. 3 years. A full 3 years, and they couldn't produce a single child. Old Mrs. Green also regretted her decision, regretting that she had agreed to let George marry a hen that couldn't lay eggs. Her hope of holding a grandchild was dashed. Yet, I am the only bloodline of the Green family. George watched me grow more sensible, especially after my outstanding performance in the college entrance exams, which brought him much pride. Everyone praised him for raising such a fine daughter. George didn't object to my opinion. Even if Sophia hadn't said anything, he would have arranged it. After all, this was his only child. "I'll inform HR, and you can go directly." I nodded and stepped out. Sarah was finally liberated from the college entrance exams and happily began planning a global trip. For the past 2 years, Linda had been too strict with her, constantly comparing her to Sophia. Sophia was clearly a freak. There was no way to compete with her. Yet Linda insisted on forcing the comparison. She felt suffocated and miserable. Her grades weren't as outstanding as Sophia's, but she still got into a 211 university. The school is decent, but under the overwhelming brilliance of Sophia, it appears particularly ordinary and unremarkable. Linda, frustrated by her lack of progress, pointed at her forehead and scolded. "Sophia already secured an internship at your father Green's company this summer. Can't you be more ambitious?" Sophia again. These past few days, all she heard was how outstanding Sophia was, how the Greens had raised such a wonderful daughter. Even Mrs. Green, who had always looked down on Sophia, couldn't stop praising her. Sarah broke down and threw things in frustration. "I'm already trying my best. Mom, can you stop constantly comparing the two of us? If you think she's so great, why don't you make her your daughter then?" The words felt like a slap in Linda's face. Implying her own daughter couldn't measure up to Judy's, it left a sickening taste in her mouth, as if she'd swallowed a fly. No sooner had the words been spoken than Linda's hand flew out in a stinging slap. Her hands trembled with a mix of heartache for her daughter and frustration at her perceived shortcomings. Shaking with anger, over the past 2 years, Mrs. Green had already expressed subtle dissatisfaction with her inability to bear a child. Her daughter couldn't compare to Sophia. And no matter how much Mrs. Green disliked Sophia, she couldn't help but make comparisons. She and George had just gone for a checkup a couple of days ago. The issue had never been with her. "George is no good. but she could only swallow her anger and bear the humiliation. She must give birth to a son, otherwise, the entire Green family would belong to Sophia, and she would gain nothing. Sophia would become the sole heir. During her internship at the group, Sophia started from the bottom, keeping a low profile and not letting outsiders know she was the only heiress of the Green family's conglomerate. This pleased George very much. During her internship, Sophia met someone named Kevin, who was also a freshman at Tsinghua University like her. The young man was full of vigor, with a hint of determination in his eyes, and his work abilities were outstanding. One could even say that partnering with Sophia was a perfect match of strengths. During the summer break, the two achieved quite a lot together. On the first day of school, they found themselves in the same class, much to the surprise of both Sophia and Kevin. His family background was quite ordinary, with both parents working as civil servants in a small county town. The young man stood before her with slightly flushed cheeks. "I never thought I'd see you again." Both were reserved and knew their boundaries. Apart from knowing the other attended Tsinghua or Peking University, they knew nothing else. "Sophia, let me treat you to bubble tea after class." The boy looked at her with sparkling eyes. Sophia wasn't foolish. She couldn't possibly miss the boy's affection for her, but she wasn't really interested in dating. She had more important things to do. After being rejected countless times, the young boy was deeply hurt, and his budding affection was nipped in the bud. Sophia was tall, beautiful, capable, radiant, and gentle, quickly becoming the campus belle upon entering school. Countless suitors pursued her, but all were rejected due to her relentless work and busy academic schedule. She worked harder than anyone else on campus. She was busy all year round, with no time left for a campus romance. In her junior year, Sophia earned dual degrees from Tsinghua and Peking University, graduating early amid the envious gazes of many. Kevin knew she was leaving and came running to see her off. Panting heavily, Sophia turned to look back. 3 years had passed, and the young man's features had grown even more refined and striking, resembling a mature man yet still carrying a hint of youthful charm. "Wait for me." Sophia stood in place, her gaze fixed on him, and said with mischievous amusement, "You made me wait for you. Do you even know who I am?" "You're Sophia." Sophia was utterly wicked, raising an eyebrow as she looked into his eyes and said, "Yes, I am Sophia." Her expression was haughty, like a proud little princess, exuding an air of superiority, but at the same time, "I'm also the only heiress of the Green family conglomerate." Kevin's face suddenly turned pale. "My future husband will only be a man who is my equal. If it's a real marriage, what she wants is a match of social status." I looked at him nakedly and said bluntly, "You asked me to wait for you, but wait for what?" I turned and walked away after saying that impossible things should be nipped in the bud from the start. I'm not a love-struck fool like my mother. There's no way I'd marry beneath me to a man, even if that man were exceptional. After graduating from university, I officially joined the company, and George announced my identity to the public, general manager of the Green family group. As soon as I joined the company, Linda announced she was pregnant, already 3 months along. George can't have children, so this baby definitely isn't his. After all these years, Linda finally couldn't hold back anymore. I smiled playfully and continued to play the role of a father-daughter relationship, making time to chat with George about business and occasionally visiting old Mrs. Green. From the moment I returned to the Green family, I cut off contact with my maternal grandparents, but I never missed visiting old Mrs. Green during holidays, especially after I got into Tsinghua and Peking University. Old Mrs. Green's opinion of me changed significantly. She suffered from headaches, so I learned massage techniques. When her health was poor, I spent a fortune on Chinese medicine for her and even had special medicinal meals prepared, like a model granddaughter. Even Linda isn't as filial to her as I am, her own granddaughter. Perhaps it's because I'm truly getting older, especially compared to Sarah. I appear even more outstanding and sensible. Old Mrs. Green has been much kinder to me these past 2 years, giving me many nice things. I didn't lose out either. I got a lot done under her name. Linda is pregnant, and the tests show it's a boy. The Green household was filled with joy. Old Mrs. Green couldn't stop smiling and gave her the family heirloom bracelet. This bracelet, my mom never even got to see it back then. Sarah, who I've been stepping on for so many years, finally gets to hold her head high for once. She's going to have a brother, Daddy Green's own flesh and blood. From now on, the Green family's heir will be her brother, and Sophia won't get a single penny. When Sarah saw Sophia walk in, she didn't detect any trace of jealousy or resentment in her eyes. Sarah played with her freshly done manicure, smiling brightly at me. "Sis, you're about to have another brother. Aren't you happy?" I laughed and said, "This is Dad's own son." No one could be happier than I am. At the mention of own son, Linda visibly stiffened for a second. My smile widened as I turned to George and said sincerely, "Dad, congratulations, congratulations. The hat fits perfectly." George is getting older, and having a child in his later years brings him more joy than anyone else. Watching this happy family, I looked down at the information the detective had sent me, and the smile on my lips deepened. As expected, Linda's son is not George's, but her ex-husband's. This is truly Sarah's younger brother. With Linda pregnant with the Green family's little heir, Sarah has become increasingly arrogant in her speech. Sarah has one more year until graduation, after which she will join the Green family's corporation. This was George's promise to Linda. During Linda's pregnancy, I worked even harder, just waiting for that child to be born. The child was just born in the hospital, and Mrs. Green was so delighted that she wanted to give Linda 100 million, plus a villa. This is the great hero of our Green family. The Green family held a grand Lucas for this child, showing how much they valued him, while I, on the other hand, began to be neglected. Sons and daughters are, after all, not the same. Linda and Sarah were wary of me, fearing that out of jealousy, I might do something insane to the child. They were overthinking it. I was even more delighted by the child's arrival than they were. If he didn't come, how could I proceed to the next step? Linda was afraid I would harm her son, especially since his birth completely stripped me of my inheritance rights. She suggested to George that I should move out of the villa. This was the perfect opportunity to openly kick me out. Heartbroken, I shed tears and considerately took the initiative to leave. Perhaps out of guilt, George transferred 1 million into my account. Staring at that million, I laughed mockingly. Compared to Linda, getting rid of me was no different from shooing away a dog. "Sophia," a familiar voice suddenly rang in my ears. I picked up my phone and looked up, spotting Kevin not far away. The man's handsome face was glistening with a light sheen of sweat. Dressed in a crisp suit, his chest rose and fell slightly. "Would you like to grab a drink?" He heard that the Green family had a new little prince, and Sophia was kicked out by her stepmother. I put away my phone and looked at him teasingly, raising an eyebrow. "What, here to laugh at me?" Kevin's face turned pale, and he quickly waved his hands in panic. I wouldn't dare. I couldn't help but laugh at his flustered appearance. "Just kidding." Kevin let out a sigh of relief, and seeing her laugh, he couldn't help but chuckle too. Clearly a social elite himself, yet he still gets so nervous around her, sitting at the bar. I took a sip of my drink. "Heard your startup's been doing really well lately." Kevin had a bit to drink, his features becoming even more refined, his voice low and magnetic. "Can't compare to the Green Group conglomerate, just small-time stuff." Sophia hadn't made a point of paying attention to him, but news about him always seemed to reach her ears through others. Kevin was quite capable, and it didn't surprise her at all that he could achieve results. Sophia finished her drink in one gulp, her expression indifferent. "Take me home." Kevin escorted her to the door, waiting for Sophia to enter. Sophia stood lazily at the doorway, raising her eyes to look at him. "Now I'm no longer the sole heir of the Green family conglomerate. You won't gain any advantage by seeking me out. As you know, my stepmother is quite formidable in her methods. None of the company's shares will ever be mine." Kevin stiffened, his pupils contracting slightly, his voice hoarse. "You've always thought my motives for getting close to you were impure." I smirked carelessly, with a hint of malice. "What else could it be? Or did you think it was for me?" "Obviously." My words drove them away. "Sophia, you're heartless." Kevin's lips trembled as he spat out these words before turning to leave. I leaned against the doorframe, unlocking it with a lazy motion, my body slouching against the door as if boneless. "Why leave so soon? At least warm my bed before you go." I yawned out of boredom and turned to enter the door. Not long after, footsteps and the sound of a closing door came from behind. The man's eyes were red, standing there with restrained stubbornness as he said, "I'm not some dog you can summon and dismiss at will." Sitting on the sofa with my legs crossed, my voice was icy to the point of cruelty. "Kevin, I don't do marriage. Think it through before you come to me. It's not too late to change your mind now." The man pointed at me as if I were the heartless one, his finger trembling, his voice shaking. "Sophia, what do you take me for?" I didn't mince words. "A bedmate. She has no desire to get married, but she does have desires for physical needs." She's not young anymore, a dignified young lady from a wealthy family, yet she's never tasted what a man is like. I heard the sound of a door slamming shut as someone stormed out. Oh well, he made someone leave in anger. Irritated, I ruffled my hair and turned to take a shower in the bathroom. When I appeared in the living room in my pajamas, the doorbell rang, and I spoke in surprise. I didn't expect the person to come back. The moment the door opened, the man's large hand tightly gripped my waist, pressing me against the wall as he enveloped me in an overwhelmingly possessive embrace. When you're with me, you're not allowed to be with other men. Sophia, I'm human too. It disgusts me. I hooked my arms around his neck, smiling coquettishly. Of course, as soon as the words left my lips, the man captured my mouth in a kiss. Wild, erratic, rough, and impatient, I tilted my head slightly, guiding him into the rhythm of the kiss. His body stiffened for a moment before he kissed even more fiercely, like a dog gnawing. As if venting his emotions, he picked me up horizontally and threw me onto the bed. His tall and straight figure looming over me, with a tearing sound. My clothes were shredded to pieces on the floor. The man's breathing was heavy, his body slightly stiff, his eyes filled with disbelief. I'm your first man. I raised my hand and slapped him. Trashy life. A crisp slap only made Kevin more excited. He slowed his movements, kissing my lips bit by bit, then my delicate collarbone. By the end of the night, my voice was completely hoarse. The next day, when I woke up, Kevin was already gone. If it weren't for the marks all over my body that looked like they'd been chewed by a dog, I would have thought I'd been beaten up last night. Jerk. Finished and left without even putting his pants back on. There was a note on the table along with the morning after pill. It read, had to go back to the office, made breakfast in the pot. Wait for me. I read the note and threw it in the trash. Today is Lucas from the Green family. I took my medicine, changed clothes, and went to the Green residence. Many influential figures from J City attended the Green family's gathering, with numerous guests from the political, military, and business circles. But you've really given your younger brother enough face. The more people come, the more the Green family will only lose face. I walked in with gifts and a smile. When the old Mrs. Green called me over, this is your own younger brother. Take good care of him from now on. The Green family won't treat you unfairly either. After all, you're my only granddaughter. This was a subtle warning to her, not to harbor inappropriate thoughts. If she remained dutiful, the Green family would surely reward her generously, but if she dared to compete with her brother, she would end up with nothing. I obediently replied, I will, Grandma. Over the years, my docile and compliant nature had pleased old Mrs. Green greatly. My obedience had earned her satisfaction. Lucas reached his climax. Linda's face beamed with a radiant, triumphant smile, while George, holding their newborn son in his arms, greeted every guest. At Lucas's event, Kevin also showed up. My gaze paused briefly as our eyes met, and I quickly looked away. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Sarah was instantly smitten with Kevin at first sight, chattering away by his side non-stop. I let out a cold laugh. This mother-daughter duo has such great taste. They always go for the men we like. I sat expressionless in the chair, my face unreadable, while Kevin joked with her. This man just isn't worth keeping. Sarah gazed at him with sparkling eyes, full of admiration and reverence. I know you. My dad talks about you all the time. You're the most outstanding one among your peers, the rising star in J City recently. Women are naturally drawn to strength, and no one could dislike such a handsome and exceptional man. Kevin knew she was Sophia's stepsister, and from the moment she arrived, his brows were furrowed. The man didn't respond, noticing Sophia's gaze, and strode directly toward her. I watched as the man approached step by step, instantly feeling as if facing a formidable enemy. What does he want? Kevin walked up to me. Your expression just now told me I shouldn't say a word to her. You don't want me anymore, right? I felt inexplicably guilty. Nothing like that. Ha, you heartless woman. Seeing the man she liked flirting with Sophia right in front of her, Sarah's face turned icy cold. Furious, she stormed over when suddenly someone at the banquet gasped, followed by the sound of a suggestive exchange between a man and a woman. The person in the video is Linda and her ex-husband. When my son is born, I'll be the father of the Green family's crown prince. Ha ha ha. Who told him he couldn't have children? George probably doesn't even know he's been cuckolded. Linda's face turned deathly pale. Her entire body stiffened, trembling uncontrollably as she screamed and frantically rushed to turn off the video. I watched all this with indifferent eyes, a cold smirk curling at the corner of my lips. When George saw the video and heard the audio, the smile on his face vanished instantly, his eyes widening in fury. The child in his arms nearly slipped from his grasp. The banquet descended into chaos. And Lucas, the heir of the Green family, instantly became infamous. The crowd looked at George with pity, sympathy, and some even thought he deserved it. Lucas is actually infertile. Oh my God, the child isn't his. To be honest, it's his karma for how he treated his first wife. Sarah snapped back to reality, her eyes wide with fury, immediately assuming it was my doing and lunged at me to hit me. It's you, it must be you. She barely got close to me when Kevin kicked her away with one foot. George also looked over at the same time, and his first instinct was to suspect me. I raised my eyes, the corners of my lips curling slightly. I raised my wine glass, to my dearest father, with respect. Before long, the police and my grandparents arrived as well. Of course, my grandparents had to come. They wanted to witness George's downfall with their own eyes. George's hands weren't clean, and the evidence was gathered by me. Over these 2 years, the mother and son have grown to trust me more and more. And they don't blame me for being so filial to them. There's no more filial daughter or granddaughter under heaven than me. George stood there motionless, just quietly watching me. This little girl he could have kicked away with a single foot back then. Now, it could also take his life. He suddenly laughed, truly his own flesh and blood. I looked at him with confusion in my eyes, convinced he must have gone mad. Old Mrs. Green couldn't bear these successive blows and fainted, throwing the banquet into chaos. With reddened eyes, my grandparents walked up to me and said, "Child, you've suffered so much these years." I smiled and replied, "It wasn't hard, Grandpa, Grandma. I want to take care of you in your old age and ensure you live out your years in comfort." The two elderly people were choked with sobs. Kevin stood beside them, his gaze at me making me too uncomfortable to meet his eyes, and I quickly looked away. "Grandpa, Grandma, from now on, Sophia and I will take care of you together." The two elderly people looked at the suddenly appearing young man with confusion in their eyes, then turned their questioning gaze to me. "My good friend." Upon hearing this, Kevin looked at me with a resentful gaze. Old Mrs. Green refused to believe the child wasn't from her Green family and had a DNA test done. The final results all showed no biological relationship. At that moment, she seemed to wither completely, aging many years in an instant. George wanted to see me in prison, otherwise, he wouldn't hand over the company to me. Actually, I didn't need him to give it to me. What I want, I'll get sooner or later, just with a few more obstacles. But it's not an insurmountable problem. Still, I went. As the final victor in this settlement, of course I had to go show off. Prison. Through the iron bars of the window, I sat on a chair smiling brightly at him. "Dad, I am after all your only daughter in this lifetime. Who else would you give the company to if not me?" These words stabbed at George's heart, causing another wave of pain. "When did you find out I couldn't have children?" I smiled eerily, staring straight at him. "When I was 8 years old. When I was 8 years old, Mom told me, you can never have another child. You'll only have me as your child. The Green family can only belong to me." George's eyelashes trembled slightly, but his expression didn't show the collapse or hatred she had hoped to see. "Sophia, do you hate me very much?" "No, I don't. Hating someone is too exhausting. I don't want to become like Mom." I wagged my finger, smiled, and looked at him with an innocent expression. "I just simply want you dead." She frowned in disdain. "But your levels are too low. Not enough for me to play with." She toyed with them like playing with dogs. George sat on the chair, his eyes terrifyingly red, his voice hoarse. "All these years, I owe you an apology, Sophia. Whether you believe it or not, you are ultimately my daughter. Even without that bastard, I would have given you half of the company. After all, you are also my daughter." I turned to look at him and sneered. "Do you even deserve that? What, do you even deserve to be my father? A scumbag like you, a social climber. You think you deserve half of what belongs to the Franklin family. What's mine? Whoever dares take it, I'll take their life." I leaned in close, lowering my voice to a chilling whisper. "I'm not like Mom, that fool who falls for your sweet talk." My lips curled into a cold smirk. "I'll make sure you all suffer a fate worse than death." A look of terror appeared on George's face, as if he had never known me before. "And that old hag, I'll take good care of her for you." George gasped for breath. "Sophia, that's your grandmother." I smirked maliciously. "She's exactly who I want to torment." My dear father, enjoy your prison life to the fullest. I laughed and said, I've heard that delicate men like you are quite popular among other men. Behind me, George's pleas and roars echoed. 7 years. It took me 7 years to settle the score with the Green family. When old Lady Green saw me appearing at the old house with over a dozen bodyguards, the first thing she said to me was, I only regret not strangling you back then. I crossed my arms and looked down at her with disdain. You old hag, get the hell out of here right now. You. What, you? I raised my hand and slapped her, my eyes as cold as ice. Who gave you the right to point your finger at me? Linda was pinned to the ground and cursed. You'll get what's coming to you. Bark like a dog again, and I'll rip out your tongue. I turned away with icy eyes. The mother and daughter on the ground trembled in fear, their faces pale and silent. Now, the sky of the Green family has changed. I looked at Mrs. Green and smiled. Does this feel familiar? This scene before us, Mrs. Green closed her eyes, her hands continuously turning the prayer beads. Of course, when my mother died, it was also you who brought so many people, sealed off the news, and handled my mother's body. I was only 15 years old at the time. Old Mrs. Green's prayer beads spun even faster. Her breathing grew erratic as she recalled the scene from back then. The woman had died with her eyes wide open, so she immediately had the body cremated, not even allowing Sophia to follow. I yanked the prayer beads right off this damned old woman. Drive them out, I said coldly. Anyone who dares to take even a single thing from our Franklin family will have their legs broken before being thrown out. Sarah, who had initially planned to steal some jewelry, was immediately too frightened to take anything. I expelled all 3 of them and reclaimed all the properties and assets under the names of Linda and her daughter. With my warning out there, no one dared to offer any assistance to the 3. As soon as Linda and her daughter went out, they abandoned old Mrs. Green, who had no choice but to return to the countryside. I spread the word to Linda's ex-husband, claiming that Linda had received a substantial amount of property after divorcing George. The man took it as truth and started harassing Linda daily, demanding money and resorting to violence when she refused. I was never a pushover from the start. Linda's daughter ended up becoming someone's mistress and was beaten by the man's wife on the street until she miscarried. This was set up by people I sent to lure her. If she weren't so vain, Linda's ex-husband gambled and racked up tens of millions in gambling debts. It was a trap orchestrated by my people, with no money to repay. The man had no choice but to sell his son and offer Linda to those men to settle the debt. Linda kept running away, only to be caught and brought back each time, beaten more brutally than before. Not long after Grandma Green returned to the countryside, she developed dementia, lay paralyzed in bed with festering sores, and starved to death. See, Mom, they all got what they deserved. In the end, George still gave me all the company's shares. Why refuse what's freely given? I'm not one to pretend otherwise. What surprised me, though, was that he didn't leave a single penny for Linda. Even if they divorced, Linda would leave with nothing. This was something I hadn't expected. 6 years later, George was released from prison. The man now had a scar on his face. Oh, I didn't let him off easy either. I paid to have him taken care of for a while in prison. Money indeed makes the mare go. Mom, you're so confused. Good people get no reward. Evil begets evil. It's because there are people like me who are even worse than them. George didn't know why he had walked to the foot of the Green family group building. The once familiar skyscraper now appeared more magnificent than ever. He approached the reception desk and requested to see Sophia. There's no one here named Sophia, George explained. It's your chairman. The receptionist thought he was some kind of beggar and directly sent him away. Sorry, without an appointment, you can't meet Miss Franklin. Miss Franklin, Miss Franklin. His face turned deathly pale. Is your Miss Franklin named Sophia Franklin? Right, she changed her surname, taking her grandfather's last name. In truth, his daughter really resembled Judy, more ruthless and smarter than him. He was the perfect heir. George was driven out. After tidying himself up, he used the money he earned in prison to buy a new suit and applied for a security guard position at the Franklin Corporation. He waited at the entrance for 3 months before finally seeing his daughter. She was holding a little girl, about 3 years old, and entered the company with 2 bodyguards following behind her. Is that his biological granddaughter? George is very excited. Sophia and Kevin had a daughter together, but they never officially registered their marriage. She said she wouldn't get married, but promised that the man by her side would always be him. Even if Kevin later changed his heart, her things would still remain hers. They belonged to her only daughter. George saw the little girl on the first floor. The little one had her hair tied up in two small buns. Pretending to be serious with her hands clasped behind her back, inspecting the place like a little adult, two bodyguards followed behind her to ensure her safety. She looks so adorable, just like his beloved daughter when she was little. Uncle, why are you crying? The kind-hearted little girl, seeing his tears, came trotting over to comfort him and handed him a tissue. Uncle, just thought of my daughter. She was as cute as you when she was little. That's wonderful, Uncle. Why are you crying then? Because Uncle used to be very bad, treating her and her mom poorly. The little girl frowned. That's really bad, Uncle. You should just give the tissue back to me. I don't want to comfort you anymore. Cry a little longer. The little girl turned and ran away. Mom had said that any father who wasn't good to his daughter was a bad guy. She wouldn't speak to the big bad guy. After hearing the two stories above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.